Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
And you want to?
Sure, shoot me.
Well, and the slide before where you were talking about, you know, the older the houses, you know, the less, you could see it was going up
Yeah,
when
right.
you were at the house, which makes sense. And I live in that, around East City Park, and you look at some of those old houses, and you see the prices, and you think, how can this be, you know? And so then does location within Moscow have some?
Location probably explains some of this variability. Yeah, the nice corner lot versus the busy intersection, you know, versus next to East City Park versus Morton Street versus, yeah. Quality of the foundation, things underneath it, floodplain. There's a lot of noise in that data. But good question. So, let's talk about the other side. Construction cost versus fair market value. Here's the puzzler. An affordable house is not necessarily cheap. So I want you to keep two ideas separated, and I struggle to do this, you'll hear me make these mistakes. Construction cost, what you paid to get it done, and fair market value, the sale price. They're not connected. Just two ideas floating around, okay? And you know that. There's some things you see that, you know, you'll see in the Sunday supplement. Oh, do this to your house and it'll raise the value. But there are other things you could do to your house. You might enjoy them, they might be lovely. They won't raise the value. Putting on a new roof, painting a room. You can spend all kinds of money and not change the fair market value. Or you can do some things that you spend more or less money and does change the fair market value. Add a bathroom, add a deck. So I want you to keep those two things separate. So if fair market value, and if this is construction cost, then there's a profit. In other words, you built it for less than you could sell it for. Happy story. Here's a second project built for the cost that it would sell for. The housing trust can work in that environment because my salary comes from somewhere else. I don't need to make a profit in order to keep the organization going. And here's the other story. The construction cost exceeds the fair market value. And you remember, my goal is to push down the fair market value. That doesn't necessarily push down the construction cost. So you end up with another problem here. It's a subsidy on this side. That it costs more to get the job done than you can sell it for. And the Martin Street house is in that category. We got money from Vista, thank you. Wells Fargo, thank you, and City of Moscow. All of which is tied up in that house, some of which will come back. But we will end up putting more than $165,000 in to build a $165,000 house. So, issue on creating affordability one. Ways to reduce the fair market value, make it more affordable. Smaller house. This is my current thing that I'm exploring. Common walls on very small lots and high density. The idea of townhouses where you bring them all together in a row. And living space in a daylight basement. Turns out that the market doesn't value daylight basements. They're just worth less per square foot to an appraiser than an above ground square foot. So if you can make use of that fact, you might make the house appraised for less. It certainly doesn't make it build for less. But it might make it appraised for less. So these strategies may or may not reduce the construction cost. But remember, they're not connected. That's fair market value we're trying to lower. So here's the last slide. And this is what I've come to understand. Here's your project. It's going to sell for some fair market value. You decide what you want to do there. The buyer's got this financing and an affordability gap problem. The builder's got this cost and the subsidy problem. You can play those around, right? You could raise the fair market value until the subsidy went away on this side. and it would grow on this side. Or you could lower this and make this go away and make that get bigger. Or you can hope to try to massage all of them and make both those red things go away. But if people were able to do that, we wouldn't be having this conversation today, because people would be out in the marketplace making affordable houses. So that's the picture, and it's really a question of on which side do you want to put in the subsidy, and how do you want to manage the subsidy? And as I said, the house on Morton Street is exactly this story. My buyer came in with a little over 150,000, put in 15,000 to close the gap. My contractor came up in there, and I'm putting in some subsidy on this side to make the deal work. The last thought. One of the things that I'm required to do annually for the kind of money that we get, here's an acronym for you, CHODO, Community Housing Development Organization. It's a status that's recognized by the federal government. Idaho Housing Finance Association in Boise manages HUD money for Idaho, and they assess our organization and confer that status. And it gives us access to the grant that pays my salary, basically. The CHODO status requires that we annually do things to learn about the housing needs of our target demographic. I've tried doing public meetings and not gotten very good turnout, so this year we're doing an online survey. The idea is I'm aiming at employees, but I'm trying to work through their employers. 2 years ago, I worked with U of I Staff Association to reach U of I staff. I like to do that and scale it up. Work with other employers, and you can think of the list of our major employers: Gritman, Schweitzer, WSU, U of I, the school district.
Are you aiming it at people who probably are going to be making less, like people who work at Safeway and Rosars and other service?
If I can get cooperation from those organizations. The smaller the organization, the more I have to find.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find the biggest ones I can. But yes, the people who are earning real wage jobs in this town, we already saw they're likely to be in my target demographic.
Yeah.
So that's who I'm trying to reach. I have two goals: understanding what the demographics need, and there's some pieces in the way the survey is structured that are aimed a little bit at buyer education. One of those pieces is that we offer a home buyers course. It's IHFA's course. It's standardized for the state of Idaho. And it's not just for first-time home buyers. It's not just for people in our income demographic. Anybody who wants to come take the course, $15 a household. I priced it by the household because I want as many decision makers in the room as I can get. $15 a household, and it's 6 hours of instruction taught by area professionals. If you can help me think about getting this survey via employers to employees, I would appreciate it. So that's what I have. Thank you. I'll take questions. Yeah.
Do the subsidies on both sides, so like the ones for the loans versus the ones for the construction costs, are those being represented by just all different types of funding organizations, like bank loan products and money coming from federal agencies to address, like, within the subsidy and the affordability
Right.
gap red spaces, is that a bunch of different monies?
Bunch of
coming from
different
all over the
sources.
place?
Bunch of different sources. Could be private philanthropy, could be a loan, could be a grant, could be sweat equity.
Has anyone talked about those monies coming in on from the subsidy standpoint being better at creating jobs than just a loan product? Like the affordability gap on the buyer financing side, maybe just a function of deferred payments, but the subsidies on the construction cost end, would that create more jobs because it's generating construction projects?
To the extent that if we don't have the subsidy, we don't do the project, then yeah. And on the other side, if this is our employee who can't buy a house, I conjecture, and I saw several questions in the survey are driving at retention. If you can't buy a house, at some point you get discouraged and decide, you know, I'm just gonna leave Moscow. I'm gonna go to Spokane, I'm gonna go wherever, where that ratio of house price to income is more favorable. So yeah, I think there's some economic development implications on both sides.
At the outset, you mentioned that Moscow is in reality a resort community, and there are.
Economically, at least.
Economically, and that, there's a status within the state of Idaho that would allow local option taxing authority for resort communities. So the Sun Valley area that you mentioned, for example, falls into that realm. Coeur d'Alene is one of those. Moscow and other members of the Association of Idaho Cities have tried for years to get the legislature to grant that local option authority. But has the Moscow Affordable Housing Trust worked with the city of Moscow and or other parties on that construction cost subsidy, that piece that's not the home originated subsidy for the homeowner, prospective homeowner, but on that other piece to say, look, if you consider that Moscow is not just a college town, but it is in fact eligible for this resort community status, and that local option taxing authority then could go into funding that subsidy because so many of our population would be eligible for it. Is that something, I mean, is there some political advocacy that the Housing Trust would engage in to help make that happen?
I would like to. From your administration was this long-term commitment that the council had to provide money to the Housing Trust. And when we collected it, we turned it into a lot and we stuck it into a subsidy. But repeating that, it becomes the challenge. And what you're suggesting is not repeating it with city dollars, but doing it using outside dollars that the city becomes eligible for.
Right.
It's a good thought.
I mean, that would be like hotel tax and things like that, you know, that we have, that this influx of those outside revenues that you talked about. I'll help.
Thank you.